Hey, it's Rylan at the Vic Shop, and you have found the explanation video to my Power Commander maps page. There are several ways to tune a Victory motorcycle, but today we'll be talking about the Power Commander. The Power Commander is a very popular device that's universal and widely accepted. Therefore, a person can go anywhere in the country and find someone, hopefully, that can tune this. The Power Commander offers the most features and tunability of all the other piggyback tuning devices on the market currently. So the way that a Power Commander is intended to work is that it would be installed on a bike and then a map would be created typically on a dyno tuning machine. These maps are displays of percentages of change and the fuel and ignition timing displayed in a graph. They can then be saved as a file, kept for safekeeping, or traded among different bike owners. So because of the popularity of the Power Commander and the ability to send files via email, we get a lot of inquiries from people looking for maps. For one reason or the other, they can't find anyone to dyno tune their bike, or they don't want to dyno tune it just yet, and they're looking for something to get them by. Because we perform a lot of popular aftermarket performance combinations here at the Vic Shop, we have a lot of files on hand. So what I've done to cut down on my email replies and to provide a better service for the Victory community is to compile these into a database with a bunch of popular combinations and a bunch of popular bikes, and these will be readily available on my website. And that's what I'm going to explain to you today. So what I've done is I've taken these hundreds and hundreds of maps and we've whittled them down into popular combinations. I then took these popular combinations, put them into an Excel document that figured out the average for each one. Hopefully this gives us a good average table to use as a starting point for a dyno tune. But here's the most important part. One, it's just an average, and two, every bike is different, and I'll explain that here in a second. Okay, averages and why every bike is different. So these maps are just averages of a whole bunch of different bikes. If you look up average on Wikipedia, it gives a classic example of the numbers 2, 8, and 11. So if you take the average of those three numbers, it is 7. So if you look at our map here, like here's the percentage of change. This is a map for a certain bike, and we're looking at 3,000 RPM at 10% throttle. It's got 7% change there. So I may dyno 3 bikes, one that has 2% change, one that has 8% change, and one that has 11% change. And so that 7 would be the average, and it would be close for the bike that wanted 8, not perfect, and it would be quite a ways off for the bike that wanted 2, and same with the bike that wanted 11. So that's the problem with a generic map, is it's just an average and it's just generic. So you better hope that you're the person that is really close to the average and not on the swing end of things. And that can realistically happen, where we can have 15% difference in a certain cell on the same bike and model and set of mods, just production variances, differences in the injector, and just little tiny differences here or there can add up. So that's why I say that these maps are not optimal. They're just to get you started. They're just an average of what I've seen, and there's no guarantee. So in certain situations, 10% difference in one cell can make or break a bike for engine damage. I mean, it'd be exceedingly rare, but it's possible, and so that's why I put that warning with these maps, is that it is just an average and there's no guarantee, and we're just kind of hoping for the best with it. And that's why the dyno is the way to tune a bike, and then you get it tuned exactly for what your bike wants and needs. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the average part. And now let me explain a little bit more about how my maps work and how to get optimum results from the Power Commander. Okay, Okay, now that we've talked about what a Power Commander is and what a Power Commander map is and how I make my generic Power Commander template maps, let's take a look at the different models of victory and the different combinations and how they're organized on my website. If you remember back to my instructional videos, we talked about that there's 4 main groupings of victories, and so we'll dive into each 4 of those individually here in just a second. So the first out of the 4 victory model groupings would be the Octane. We'll start with the baby, the new bike. This bike is completely different than all the other victories ever created thus far. New engine, frame, drivetrain, everything's different and new. It does take a Power Commander, but because the bike is so new, we've only got a few maps to go off of. And the typical modifications on an Octane would be the intake, exhaust, and that's about it so far. We're hoping, right now it's October 2016, hoping that some new stuff will come out next year. We'll get a lot more guys that have gone out of their factory warranty, and we'll get more maps for this one being made. So just a little bit on that one thus far. So the second grouping is the steel frame models. The steel frame models have been around forever, and just like the name says, they have a traditional welded steel tube frame. The steel frame would cover all the models of Vegas, Kingpin, Jackpot, Hammer, Judge, Boardwalk, and but those are all the steel frame bikes, and they'll have a variety of different combinations, mostly broken down to different exhaust, different intake, and different cam combinations. All of my maps that you'll see, they'll have Lloyd's timing wheel. It's kind of included. Like, we just assume that you've got the Lloyd's timing wheel on there, and all my maps will reflect that. And then you just pick and choose your intake and exhaust and cam option from there. So the third grouping would be the core frame bikes, the cross bikes and the Vision. Right now we'll talk about the cross bikes. The cross bikes, the intake is in the frame. It's a cast aluminum frame, and the intake is specific to the cross bikes as opposed to the Vision, which has a different cast frame with the airbox as the frame. So on the cross bikes, it covers all models of cross. So it'd be cross country tour, the Magnum, the X1, the Crossroads. Those are all just different trim levels, but they all take the same pipe and have the same intake. And so you'll see that my maps are broken down into exhaust, and the different cam options, and really that's about it, because we just assume that you got Lloyd's timing wheel on there and Lloyd's air filter, because you'd be a fool not to. And so all my maps include that. And so if you see on the maps HOH bits, the HOH stands for hard on horsepower, which is Lloyd's. So if you see a map that says HOH bits, Vance & Hines pipes, that would be a stock cam bike, any cross country, any cross model with the Vance & Hines pipes, Lloyd's timing wheel, Lloyd's air filter. Okay, the final grouping of the major types of victory would be the Vision, and my personal opinion is the Vision is the best one. But the Vision is nice because it's got the ability to have a secondary air filter made by Lloyd's. Ness also has one. So all my maps will assume that it's got the Lloyd's filter and timing wheel. Just like on the cross country, when it says HOH bits, that includes Lloyd's secondary filter and the timing wheel. And then just like the cross models, it's broken into cam choice and exhaust choice. There's a handful of exhausts that are available and a handful of cams, and so when you're sorting through the Vision stuff, just sort it that way. So now that we've gone through all the different types of victory, let's go through a couple of quick tips on the Power Commander installation that'll make sure you get the most out of the Power Commander and my generic map. Okay, so now that I've explained all the different models of victories and the popular combinations and how to sort through it on my website, I'd like to go to a couple basic things on the Power Commander setup that's going to make sure you get optimum results. The first one is on my website. There should be a section that says based on X number of maps, and so you're going to get better results off of a bike or a map that's based off of 20 different bikes rather than one that's based off 2. So going back to the part of the video where we talked about averages, we might get a more reliable average with a greater field of bikes. So that's what that means if you see that on my site. Some other things to do once the Power Commander is installed on the bike: plug it in, get the program called up on your laptop, and the first thing we want to do is set the throttle position voltages, and this will make sure that the map starts at 0 and ends at 100%. So you would go into the Power Commander tools, the calibrate section, the throttle position, and flip the bike on. And we want to set the minimum voltage where it's at idle, and then twist the thing to 100%. You can see it says 100% over on the right, and record the sensor voltage at 100% and make sure that equals what is showing on your display here. A lot of times you'll twist the throttle wide open and it's only showing up to 95% or something on the Power Commander, which is not giving you optimum results. So after you've set the throttle position, then let's talk a little bit about D-cell pop. The D-cell pop can change bike to bike. Sometimes the D-cell pop is controlled in the 0% column, typically anywhere from the range of 2,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. It's basically everything but idle in the 0% column. And some bikes, they'll take a big positive number, some bikes like 0, and some bikes like a big negative number. And just because I've got one number on my generic map doesn't mean that that's the right number for your bike. So you may load the map, write it, and go, geez, it pops a little more on D-cell than I expected it would. And let's say, like in this case, it's a positive 5. If I was trying stuff out, I'd try swapping that to a negative 5 on both cylinders and see how negative 5 affected it. And if it was better at negative 5, I might try negative 20 and see where that gets me. Or if it was worse, then maybe I'd try a large positive number like positive 20 and see where that got me. You'll never get rid of all the D-cell pop. The Power Commander is good at masking it, but the D-cell pop is related to the emissions equipment. And so the best you can do is mask it, and the more loud and open the pipes are, the more pop you're going to get. A quiet, baffled pipe, when set up properly and tuned properly, may not pop at all, or we get rid of a vast majority of the popping. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, well, the second to the last thing is the ignition timing. I just put some generic numbers in there. And really, ignition timing should be adjusted on the dyno. The numbers that I've got in my generic maps are very simple and low settings that really shouldn't be advanced unless you have the aid of a dyno. So I put some timing into these, but sometimes you might just zero them out and see where that gets you. And then the last thing is the Rev Extend. I mean, a lot of people don't even know how easy it is to extend the rev. Typically, a stock rev limiter is set at 5,500 RPM. And if we go into the Power Commander tools, configure the feature enable, and there's your Rev Extend. It's been clicked right there. And that's all it takes to go from 5,500 RPM to 6,000. So we put the Power Commander on, loaded a map, immediately went in, made sure my TPS was set correctly, took a look at the timing maps, made sure that it didn't seem like it was too much, looked at the D-cell pop stuff in the 0% column, made sure the Rev Extend was clicked, and that's a good way to get started, and that'll get you onto the trailer or around the block and onto the trailer and off to your dyno tuner. All right, let's wrap this up. Hopefully I've adequately explained what a Power Commander is, what the map is, and how my maps are made and sorted, and I've given you a couple of easy tips to get the Power Commander set up properly. So the last point I wanted to make is that these are generic maps. It's just a template. It's not perfect for your bike. It's just an average. So therefore, I wouldn't feel right about charging for them. They're absolutely free. Just go to my website, take what you need, and if it works out for you, then awesome. I would encourage you to check out our web store and think about buying a overpriced hoodie or t-shirt. It helps us keep the lights on and gives us encouragement to keep updating the maps, and it's a great way with a high quality piece of cloth to show that you just can't leave well enough alone. Thanks for watching.